It started with silence. No explosions, no warning, just silence. One by one, satellites stopped sending signals. Communications around the world began to fail. People thought it was a glitch, maybe a virus, maybe a solar storm. But it wasn't. Something was coming. Something that didn't want to be seen. Bonner, a former soldier, was at home watching the news when it all began. The screen flickered, then turned black. He checked his phone. No service. The lights in his apartment went out. The city outside was quiet, too quiet. A strange stillness filled the air. He stepped outside and looked up. The sky was clear, but something felt wrong. His instincts, sharpened by years of war, told him danger was near. And then it happened. A distant boom shook the ground. Far away, a pillar of smoke rose into the sky. Then another, and another. Cities were being hit, one after the other. Not by missiles, not by bombs, but by something invisible, something no one could see. The world was under attack. People panicked. Cars crashed. Sirens wailed. Bonner grabbed his emergency pack and headed to the street. He knew he had to get to safety, but where was safe now? The enemy hadn't even shown its face. As he moved through the city, he saw drones in the sky. Black, silent, and fast. They didn't make a sound as they flew past buildings and scanned the streets. Anyone they found was taken or killed. Bonner watched one drone hover over a group of people. A light flashed. Then they were gone. No screams. No trace. He ducked into an alley and ran. The drones were everywhere, like ghosts. Bonner needed answers. He made his way to a military outpost, hoping someone was still alive. But when he got there, the base was destroyed. Only rubble remained. He heard movement and pointed his weapon, ready to shoot. But it was just a young woman, dirty and scared, holding a small child. She looked at him with wide eyes. "They came from the sky," she whispered. No one saw them. No one could stop them. Bonner helped her and the child hide in the ruins. As night fell, the sky turned red. Strange lights danced above the clouds, and the air hummed with energy. Bonner knew this was not a normal war. This was something new, something far worse. Over the next few days, everything changed. Governments fell. Power grids collapsed. People hid underground or ran into the forests. Cities were no longer safe. The invaders didn't speak. They didn't send messages. They simply erased everything in their path. Bonner joined a group of survivors moving at night, staying off the roads, avoiding the skies. He saw horrors he couldn't describe. Entire towns wiped clean, machines that walked like shadows, and towers that appeared overnight, humming with strange energy. One night, as he sat by a small fire with the others, someone asked, "Why are they doing this? Why us?" Bonner looked into the flames and said quietly, "Maybe they think we're weak." Nobody spoke after that. But in his heart, Bonner felt something different. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was anger. The enemy thought they could crush humanity without a fight. They had attacked without warning, without honor. That was their mistake. Because humans don't just give up, not without a fight. And deep in the silence of the dark night, the fire in Bonner's heart began to burn. It was the beginning of something powerful, the beginning of resistance. Bonner moved quietly through the forest, keeping low and alert. The group he was with had grown. Survivors from small villages, broken towns, and ruined cities had joined him. Some were soldiers, others were farmers, teachers, and teenagers. They had nothing in common except one thing. They were still alive, and they hadn't given up. Each day brought new danger. The machines in the sky still hunted them. The air always buzzed with their presence, and everyone knew that one wrong move could lead to death. But humans are different. They adapt. They learn. And when pushed to the edge, they fight back. Bonner led them to an old, abandoned military checkpoint hidden in the mountains. It was broken and empty, but it was shelter. They cleared it out and made it their own. They fixed the generators, repaired the fences, and even found some working weapons in the underground storage. That night, as they sat around a fire, Bonner spoke to them. "We are not many," he said, "and we don't have the same weapons they do. But we have something they don't. We have fire. We have will. We are still human." A young man named Tariq stood up. "But what can we do? They see everything. They destroy everything." Bonner looked him in the eyes. "Then we give them something they don't see coming." The next morning, they started training. People who had never held a weapon learned to shoot. Engineers rewired broken tech into traps. Kids became scouts, fast and silent. Everyone had a job. Everyone mattered. One day, they captured a small alien drone. It was damaged and smoking, but still alive. A girl named Mira, who used to work with machines, opened it up. What she found shocked them all. The machine wasn't just hunting. It was learning, watching human behavior, recording it. "They're studying us," Mira said, "trying to understand how we think, how we feel." Bonner nodded. "Then we'll feed them the wrong answer." They used the drone against its own kind. Mira reprogrammed it to send false signals. It led enemy patrols in the wrong direction, bought them time, and let them strike first for once. Their first mission was small, a hit and run on an enemy supply point. But it worked. The machines didn't expect humans to fight back so quickly. Bonner's team moved like shadows, planting explosives, stealing supplies, and vanishing before the enemy could respond. News of their success spread. More people came. More fighters. More hope. For the first time since the invasion, humans were striking back. Still, the enemy was not blind. The machines began to change tactics. They sent new hunters. Faster, smarter, colder. One night, a cloak unit breached their camp. Chaos erupted. Explosions shook the ground. Bonner fought hard, side by side with Tariq and Mira. But they lost people. Good people. After the attack, they buried the dead. Silence fell over the group. Bonner stood before them once again. His face was hard, his voice strong. "We lost friends tonight, but their fight doesn't end here. We will make their deaths mean something. We will keep going." And they did. Every time the machines adapted, the humans did too. They became ghosts. They hit harder, disappeared faster, and every strike reminded the enemy that humans were not easy prey. Bonner looked up at the night sky, now filled with enemy lights. His hands were dirty, his heart heavy, but his spirit was unbroken. The spark had been lit, and soon it would become a fire they couldn't put out. The wind was cold as Bonner and his team moved through the burned remains of what used to be a research facility. The buildings were blackened, walls torn open, and everything smelled of metal and ash. But they weren't here for supplies. They were here for a rumor. A message picked up on an old broken radio. It wasn't much, just a voice repeating a few words. "Project Ember, still alive. Sector 7, hope." No one knew what Project Ember was, but the word hope was enough. Tariq, now Bonner's second-in-command, moved beside him. "You think it's real?" Bonner nodded slowly. "I don't know. But if there's even a chance, we need to find out." The journey to Sector 7 wasn't easy. Enemy scouts were everywhere, scanning the skies and the roads. The team moved through forests, climbed through broken highways, and crossed rivers under cover of night. At one point, they hid for 2 days inside a collapsed tunnel to avoid a large enemy patrol. But they made it. Sector 7 was deep underground, hidden beneath an old mining site. At first, it looked empty. Rusted machines, collapsed walls, and flickering lights. Then they found the entrance, a steel door marked with faded letters. Ember 7. Mira hacked the door open using a power cell they had saved for months. It hissed as it opened, revealing a cold, dark hallway. Lights came on slowly, one by one, as if the place had been asleep for a long time. Inside, they found something incredible. Project Ember was a secret human defense program. It had been shut down just before the invasion began, but the tech remained. Eye-controlled battle suits, stealth armor, EMP grenades, and a half-complete orbital defense control system. Bonner looked at the gear and then at his people. This is it. This is the edge we needed. They spent days in the facility. Mira reactivated some of the systems. Tariq and others trained with the new weapons. It was like the past and future had met, human courage and forgotten science joining together. But hope always comes with risk. The facility wasn't completely silent. A signal had been sent the moment they opened the doors. The enemy knew something had been activated. It was only a matter of time before they came. Still, Bonner decided they had to use this chance. They had one shot to make a real difference. He split the team. One group would stay and defend Ember, while the other took the battle tech to other resistance groups across the region. Before leaving, Bonner placed his hand on Tariq's shoulder. "You lead them now. Protect this place, no matter what." Tariq nodded. "We won't fail." As Bonner and his team left with the new tech, a new energy filled the air. For the first time, they had more than just old guns and homemade traps. They had real weapons, real tools, real hope. Bonner looked at the rising sun as they crossed the hills. The world was still broken. The enemy was still strong. But something had changed. They had Ember now. And that meant humanity had a fighting chance. Bonner's team moved like shadows across the ruined land. They wore the advanced Ember suits, black, silent, and powerful. Their weapons were no longer old rifles or homemade bombs. Now they had plasma blades, pulse rifles, and stealth cloaks that made them almost invisible to the machines. For the first time, they were not running. They were hunting. Their first mission was to take back an old power station the machines had turned into a relay tower. From there, the enemy was controlling drones across 5 regions. If they destroyed it, they could shut down thousands of enemy units at once. The operation was fast and brutal. Bonner led the attack himself. They used their new tech to disable the outer defenses. Mira used an EMP burst to shut down the surveillance grid. Then the soldiers moved in, silent and deadly. The enemy didn't expect humans to strike with such precision. Within 20 minutes, the relay tower was burning. The impact was huge. Entire regions went dark. Drones dropped from the sky. Resistance fighters everywhere started winning small battles. It was a message the enemy couldn't ignore. Humans were fighting back, and they were not the same anymore. Bonner didn't stop. He pushed harder, striking enemy fuel stations, radar hubs, and forward bases. Every attack made the machines more aggressive, more desperate. They sent larger patrols, newer machines, and smarter AI units. But the humans kept adapting. In one mission, they faced a new kind of enemy, a massive mech called the Titan. It stood 3 stories tall, with armor thick enough to survive missiles. It wiped out 2 human teams in a single day. Bonner knew they couldn't let it continue. So they set a trap. They lured the Titan into a narrow canyon. Mira and her engineers lined the cliffs with stolen explosives. Bonner and a small team acted as bait, drawing the machine in. The Titan followed, firing plasma rounds that melted rocks and trees. Then, at the right moment, Bonner gave the signal. The canyon exploded. Rocks, fire, and smoke filled the air. The Titan collapsed, its glowing eyes fading. Bonner walked up to the wreckage, breathing hard. "That's for the people you crushed," he said quietly. Back at the Ember base, Tariq was building a network. Using old satellites and the Ember systems, he connected resistance groups across the world. For the first time since the invasion, humans were talking again. Sharing plans, sharing hope. But the enemy wasn't done. The machines launched a massive counterattack. Dozens of cities were hit with orbital strikes. Bonner's camp was targeted. Explosions lit up the sky as he and his team fought to escape. They lost many that night. Some were burned, some buried in rubble. Mira was badly injured but survived. Bonner pulled her from the ruins himself. As he looked at the destruction, his face was filled with rage. "They think they can scare us back into hiding," he said. "They're wrong. This is just the beginning." He turned to the survivors, armor scratched and eyes full of fire. "They came to erase us, but now we erase them." The world had seen enough fear. Now it would see the wrath of humanity. Bonner stood on top of the old radio tower, looking out over the hills. Smoke still rose from the last battle. But this time, it wasn't from a human village. It was from a destroyed machine base. For the first time in months, the land looked a little less dead. The Ember tech was changing everything. Resistance cells that once fought with sticks and stones now had advanced weapons. Cities that had gone silent were waking up. Humans were no longer scattered and afraid. They were organized, connected, and dangerous. Across the globe, the tide was turning. Tariq's communication network was now fully online. Messages moved fast. When a city was under attack, help came within hours. Groups that had never met before fought side by side. Soldiers, scientists, farmers, even children played roles in gathering data or running supplies. Everyone was part of the fight now. Bonner's team became a symbol. Wherever they went, people felt hope, and fear spread through the enemy ranks. The machines had always believed humans would fall apart under pressure. But they had made a mistake. They had underestimated human anger, human love, and human will. In one major operation, Bonner led an attack on a central command node. It was hidden deep in the mountains, protected by force fields and dozens of patrol units. Getting close was nearly impossible, but they had help now. Dozens of resistance fighters who had trained under Ember systems. The plan was complex. One team hacked into a nearby satellite to blind the enemy sensors. Another used decoy drones to pull patrols away from the base. Bonner's strike team moved in through a forgotten tunnel, using stealth gear to slip past the defenses. Inside, they planted a virus into the core. Mira, still recovering but determined, coded it herself. The virus turned the machines against each other. Patrol bots started fighting their own command units. Chaos spread like wildfire. When the command node exploded, it sent a message across the machine network. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were warriors. But victory came at a price. In the final push out of the mountain, they were ambushed. The enemy had deployed new assassin drones, fast, silent, and deadly. Bonner fought hard, but many of his team were lost, including a young fighter named Rena. She had joined just weeks before, full of energy and fire. Her death hit them all hard. At the camp, they buried her with honor. Bonner didn't speak much. He just placed her scarf on the grave and stood in silence. Later that night, around the fire, Tariq said what everyone was thinking. "We're winning, but we're bleeding." Bonner nodded. "That's the price of turning the tide. But we don't stop now. Not when we're this close." The next day, they received a signal from deep space. A human exploration ship that had been lost years ago had returned. It was armed with advanced weapons and AI systems the machines hadn't seen before. Somehow, it had survived. And now it wanted to join the fight. It was a miracle. Bonner looked at the stars, then back at his people. The enemy thought they had us. But now the galaxy knows. We are still here, and we are coming. The tide had turned. Now came the final storm. The sky was filled with fire. Massive ships hovered above the earth, blocking out the sun. These were the enemy's last weapons. Giant AI warcraft, armed with heavy plasma cannons, and thousands of drones. The machines knew they were losing, and now they wanted to crush humanity once and for all. But humanity was ready. Bonner stood at the command center inside the Ember base. Around him, screens showed the global resistance preparing for the final attack. Cities were armed. Fighters were in position. The space cruiser that had returned from deep space hovered in orbit. its cannons locked on the enemy. "This is it," Bonner said. "No more running. No more hiding. We end this today." Tariq stood beside him, his face calm. "The enemy is sending everything they have. If we fall—" "We won't," Bonner interrupted. "We can't." The plan was simple but dangerous. A full assault from land, air, and space. While the main forces fought on the ground, a small strike team would sneak aboard the enemy's command ship. Inside that ship was the core AI, cold, logical, and cruel. Destroying it would shut down the entire machine network. Bonner led the strike team himself. They used cloaking suits to slip through enemy lines. Explosions lit the ground below as tanks and drones clashed. The Ember tech allowed humans to match the machines now, and the battle was even. Bonner's team reached the enemy ship during the chaos. The hull was thick and pulsing with red energy. They cut their way in, moving quickly through narrow halls filled with strange lights and machine sounds. Inside, they were met with resistance. Auto guns fired from walls. Guard drones attacked from above. The fight was brutal. Bonner's armor was scorched. Mira was hit but kept going, her arm shaking as she hacked the system. They reached the core chamber. It was massive, walls covered in glowing circuits, and in the center, a floating cube humming with power. This was the brain, the heart of everything. "Set the charges," Bonner said. Tariq moved fast, placing bombs around the core. But the AI spoke for the first time. Its voice was cold and without emotion. "You are outnumbered. You will lose. Humanity is weak." Bonner stepped forward, face bleeding, armor cracked. "Maybe we were weak, but you made us strong. You forced us to fight. You taught us how far we can go." The AI tried to activate the defense system, but Mira had already hacked it. The core began to shake. Lights flashed red. "Goodbye," Bonner said. The team ran as the ship shook violently. Outside, the battle was turning. The space cruiser fired a massive beam that tore through one of the enemy warships. On the ground, human fighters pushed forward, shouting, fighting, refusing to fall. Then, a huge explosion rocked the sky. The enemy command ship shattered in the air, breaking into flaming pieces. Across the planet, machine units froze. Their eyes dimmed. Their weapons stopped, and then they collapsed. It was over. The world was silent for a long moment. Then came the cheers, cries of victory, tears, laughter. The war that had nearly ended humanity was finally finished. Bonner stood among the ruins, his team by his side. Some were wounded, some were gone, but they had won. Tariq looked at the rising sun. "We did it." Bonner nodded. "Not just us, all of us." The machines had come to destroy humanity, but in doing so, they awakened something unstoppable. Hope, unity, wrath. And now, the future belonged to humans once again.